The hallway light flickered as Maria locked her apartment door, casting unsteady shadows across the worn carpet. She checked the lock twice, then 3 times, a habit she'd picked up over the past few months. The building used to feel safe when she and her kids first moved in 3 years ago. Now every creak made her jump. Maria tucked her phone into her pocket and hurried down the stairs, avoiding the elevator that had been breaking down too often lately. She needed to drop her youngest at the neighbor's place before her shift at the hospital cafeteria. Being late wasn't an option, not when she was already on thin ice with her supervisor. "Hurry up, Louisa," she called to her 6-year-old daughter who was trailing behind, tiny backpack bouncing. "Mrs. Patel is waiting and Mommy can't be late again." As they rounded the corner to the ground floor, Maria froze. 2 men she didn't recognize were huddled near the mailboxes, exchanging something quickly before stuffing their hands in their pockets. They glared as Maria pulled Louisa closer. "Good morning," Maria said politely, trying to keep her voice steady. One man nodded slightly while the other just stared, eyes following them as they passed. Once outside in the morning sunlight, Maria let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. This was the 3rd time this week she'd seen strangers hanging around the building who clearly didn't live there. Last month, someone had broken into the apartment 2 doors down from hers. The month before that, a teenager had been caught with drugs in the stairwell. "Who were those men, Mommy?" Louisa asked, skipping beside her. "Just people checking their mail, sweetie," Maria lied, not wanting to scare her daughter. "Remember what I told you about not talking to strangers in the building?" After dropping Louisa off, Maria texted her older children, 12-year-old Miguel and 9-year-old Elena, reminding them to go straight to Mrs. Patel's after school. She'd pick them all up after her shift ended at 7:30. Another long day in a string of long days. During her lunch break, Maria called the police station again. She'd lost count of how many times she'd done this over the past 6 months. Each time she was told an officer would look into it. Each time nothing changed. "Pine Hills Precinct. How can I help you?" The voice on the other end sounded bored. "Hi, this is Maria Rodriguez from Oakwood Apartments on Elm Street. I'm calling again about suspicious activity in our building. There are people hanging around who don't live here, and I think they're selling drugs." The dispatcher sighed audibly. "Do you have any evidence of illegal activity, ma'am?" "I see them exchanging things, small packages. They run away when anyone comes close. My neighbor's apartment was broken into last month. I reported it then, too." "Yes, I see your previous reports. An officer drove by the property after your last call." "Drove by? But they didn't even come inside or talk to anyone." Maria struggled to keep her voice down in the crowded cafeteria. "Ma'am, we can't just enter a building without cause. I'll add this to your existing report. An officer will drive through the area when available." "When will that be?" "We prioritize calls based on urgency. Right now we're dealing with several higher priority situations." Maria ended the call feeling the familiar mixture of frustration and helplessness. Her neighborhood was changing and nobody seemed to care. The police treated her calls like an annoyance. The landlord ignored maintenance requests. And here she was, working overtime shifts just to keep a roof over her children's heads in a building that no longer felt safe. That evening, while helping Elena with homework at their small kitchen table, Maria noticed Miguel staring out the window, unusually quiet. "Everything okay, Hijo?" she asked, pushing a plate of sliced apples toward him. "I saw those guys again today," he said quietly. "When I was coming home from school, they were arguing with Mr. Lee from apartment 2B. Maria's stomach tightened. Mr. Lee was in his 70s and lived alone. "What happened?" Mr. Lee was yelling that they needed to leave. One of them pushed him, but then they saw me watching and walked away. Maria put down the pencil she'd been holding. "Did you tell anyone?" Miguel shook his head. "Who would I tell? The police don't come when you call them." The truth in her son's words stung. She'd always taught her children to trust the system, to believe that rules and authorities existed to protect people. Now her oldest was learning a different lesson, that some neighborhoods got protection while others were left to fend for themselves. That night, after tucking the kids into bed, Maria sat at her small desk and wrote down everything. Dates, times, descriptions of the people she'd seen, the incidents reported. Maybe if she had enough details, someone would finally listen. The next morning brought new troubles. Maria was taking out the trash when she noticed the lock on the building's back entrance had been broken. Again. She called the landlord immediately. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I just had that fixed last month," he complained. "Do you know how expensive these repairs are getting?" "It's a security issue," Maria insisted. "My children live here. Everyone deserves a safe home. I'll send someone when I can. Maybe next week." Maria was late to work that day after spending 30 minutes trying to jam the broken door shut with a piece of wood. Her supervisor gave her a final warning. 3 days later, Maria fumbled for her keys after a particularly exhausting double shift. The hallway light was completely out now, forcing her to use her phone flashlight. As she approached her door, something felt wrong. The door was slightly ajar, wood splintered around the lock. Heart pounding, she called out, "Miguel? Elena? Luisa?" No answer. The kids were still at Mrs. Patel's, thank goodness, but her home had been violated. Handshaking, she dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? My apartment has been broken into. The door is broken. I need police right away. Is anyone inside now? I don't know. I'm afraid to go in. What's your address? Maria gave her information, and the dispatcher promised officers would be dispatched. She waited in the hallway, back pressed against the wall, for nearly an hour before calling again. The dispatcher told her there had been a pileup on the highway, and all available units were responding to that emergency. "So no one is coming?" Maria asked, voice breaking. "An officer will be there when available, ma'am." 3 hours later? Well, after midnight, an officer finally arrived. By then, Maria had cautiously entered her apartment with Mrs. Patel's husband for safety. The place had been ransacked, drawers emptied, mattresses flipped, the children's piggy banks smashed. Her laptop was gone, along with the envelope containing next month's rent money she'd been saving. The officer, a young man who looked barely older than 25, took notes with a bored expression. "Any witnesses? Security cameras?" "No cameras. The landlord says they're too expensive, and no witnesses that I know of." He scribbled something down. "And you said this is the first break-in in your unit, but there have been others in the building?" "Yes, and I've called about suspicious people many times. Nobody ever does anything." The officer closed his notebook. "Well, we'll file the report. Make sure you call your insurance company. Most of these cases don't get solved unless there's clear evidence or witnesses." "But what about fingerprints, DNA? Don't you investigate?" The officer actually chuckled. "Ma'am, this isn't CSI. We don't have resources for that kind of investigation for every break-in." After he left, promising a case number would be sent to her email, Maria sank onto the couch and finally let the tears come. All her calls, all her vigilance, all her attempts to protect her family had amounted to nothing. The system that was supposed to protect her had other priorities. She slept at Mrs. Patel's that night, unable to face telling her children their home wasn't safe. Tomorrow she'd have to figure out how to fix the door, replace the rent money, and somehow make her kids feel secure again. What Maria didn't know was that her 12-year-old son had witnessed more than he let on, and Miguel Rodriguez was about to take matters into his own hands in a way that would change everything. Miguel Rodriguez sat in the back row of his 7th grade classroom, but his mind wasn't on Ms. Wilson's lesson about the 3 branches of government. Instead, he kept replaying last night's events in his head. The image of his mother's face when she saw their apartment door broken open, the way her voice shook when she told them they'd be staying at Mrs. Patel's just for a little while, the officer who barely looked up from his notepad as Mom explained how many times she'd called before. "Miguel? Miguel, are you with us?" He snapped to attention. Ms. Wilson was looking at him expectantly, along with 25 other students. "Sorry, what was the question?" he asked, feeling his cheeks grow hot. "I asked if you could name the head of your local government. We're discussing how city governance works." "The mayor," Miguel answered quickly. "Mayor Chen." "Correct. And what kinds of problems would you take to your mayor instead of to the federal government?" Miguel thought about the broken lock on their building's back door, the strangers in the hallways, The police who never came until it was too late. Problems that affect your neighborhood, he said slowly. When the people who are supposed to help don't do their jobs. Ms. Wilson raised an eyebrow but nodded. That's right. Local issues often fall under the mayor's office, things like road repairs, public safety concerns, and local business regulations. When the bell rang, Miguel lingered as other students filed out for lunch. Everything okay? Ms. Wilson asked, erasing the whiteboard. You seemed distracted today. Miguel hesitated. Ms. Wilson was nice, but what could she really do? Still, maybe, she'd know something that could help. Our apartment got broken into yesterday, he said finally, and the police didn't come for hours. When they did, they didn't do anything. They didn't even look for fingerprints. Ms. Wilson put down the eraser. I'm so sorry to hear that, Miguel. Is everyone okay? Were you home when it happened? No, we were at the neighbor's, but it's not just the break-in. My mom's been calling the police for months about suspicious people in our building. They never do anything. They don't care about our neighborhood. His teacher looked troubled. That's not right. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their home. My mom works so hard, Miguel continued, the words spilling out now. She's always telling us to follow rules and trust the system, but the system isn't working for us. Ms. Wilson considered him thoughtfully. You know, we've been talking about civic engagement in class. Sometimes when the normal channels aren't working, you need to go up the chain of command. What do you mean? Well, police departments answer to someone. In our city, the mayor has oversight of public safety. Part of what we're learning is that in a democracy, regular citizens have the right to be heard. Miguel thought about this as he walked to the cafeteria. The mayor, the person in charge of the whole city. Would someone that important listen to a family like his? After school, instead of going straight to Mrs. Patel's as his mother had instructed, Miguel stopped at the public library. He sat at one of the computers and searched Mayor Gloria Chen contact information. The city website listed a public email, address, a phone number for the mayor's office, and even upcoming community meetings where citizens could speak directly to the mayor. Miguel stared at the screen, an idea forming. He opened a new document and began typing. His English teacher always said he had a way with words. Now those words needed to count more than ever. Dear Mayor Chen, he wrote, my name is Miguel Rodriguez. I am 12 years old and I live with my mom and brother and sister at Oakwood Apartments on Elm Street. I am writing to you because nobody else will help us. Miguel worked carefully, checking his spelling and grammar. He listed every incident his mother had reported to the police, the strangers in the hallways, Mr. Lee being pushed, the broken locks, the break-ins. He included dates and times from his mother's notebook that she kept by the phone. My mom works 2 jobs to take care of us, he continued. She teaches us to follow rules and respect authority. But the police don't come when she calls. They treat her like she's bothering them. Last night someone broke into our apartment and stole my mom's laptop and our rent money. The police officer didn't even try to find who did it. He just said most cases don't get solved. Miguel paused, thinking about how to end his message. He didn't want to sound like he was just complaining. Ms. Wilson had taught them that when addressing problems, it was good to suggest solutions. I know you are very busy running the whole city, but I think something is wrong when some neighborhoods get help and others don't. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their home. My mom has called the police 15 times in 6 months. I counted. The report's in her notebook. Please help us before something worse happens. Thank you for your time. He read it over twice, added his mother's phone number at the bottom, and hit send before he could change his mind. That evening, back at Mrs. Patel's apartment where they were still staying, Miguel helped his little sisters with homework while their mom made calls about getting their door fixed. He could hear the strain in her voice as she explained to the landlord that she couldn't afford to pay for repairs herself. I've reported security issues for months, she was saying. This wouldn't have happened if the back door had been fixed when I first reported it broken. No, I don't have the money right now. We're talking about basic safety here. After she hung up, Maria sat heavily on Mrs. Patel's couch, looking more tired than Miguel had ever seen her. Everything okay, Mom? He asked, already knowing the answer. She forced a smile. Just grown-up stuff, honey. Don't worry. We'll be back home tomorrow. Did they catch who broke in? Maria shook her head. The police called. They said without witnesses or evidence, there's not much they can do. They'll keep an eye out for our stolen things. Miguel felt a flash of anger. His mother deserved better. They all did. The next day at school, Miguel could barely concentrate. He kept checking his phone between classes, wondering if the mayor would respond to his email. By afternoon, he'd convinced himself that his message had probably been deleted without being read. Important people like mayors probably got hundreds of emails every day. After the final bell, he was gathering books from his locker when his phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally, he'd ignore it. His mom had warned about scam calls, but something made him answer. Hello, is this Miguel Rodriguez? The woman's voice was crisp and professional. Yes, who's this? My name is Diane Park. I'm calling from Mayor Chen's office. The mayor received your email and would like to speak with you. Is this a good time? Miguel nearly dropped his phone. The mayor wants to talk to me right now? Yes, if that works for you. She was quite moved by your message. Yes. I can talk. Miguel ducked into an empty classroom, heart pounding. Excellent, please hold for Mayor Chen. A moment later, a different voice came on the line. Miguel, this is Gloria Chen. Thank you for your email. I was very concerned by what you shared. You read it yourself? Miguel stammered. I did. Your message was very well written and detailed. I want you to know that what you've described, the lack of police response, the security issues in your building, this isn't acceptable. Every neighborhood in our city deserves equal protection and service. Miguel sank into a desk chair, stunned. We've been trying to get help for so long. I can see that from the dates you provided. I'd like to learn more about the situation. Would it be possible to speak with your mother? She's at work right now. She works at Memorial Hospital in the cafeteria. I see. Well, with your permission, I'd like to call her. And I'd also like to arrange a meeting with your family. Really? Miguel couldn't believe what he was hearing. Yes. The issues you've raised require immediate attention. Could you and your family meet me tomorrow evening? I'll come to your neighborhood. We're staying at our neighbor's right now because our door is broken, Miguel explained. There was a pause. That's unacceptable. I'll have someone from housing services contact your landlord today about emergency repairs, and I'll bring the police precinct captain with me to our meeting tomorrow. After arranging details for the meeting, Miguel hung up in a daze. The mayor had actually listened. She was going to help, but now he had to figure out how to tell his mother what he'd done. That evening, when Maria returned from work, she was greeted by an unusual sight. Her children sitting with Mrs. Patel, all wearing expressions that suggested they were keeping a secret. What's going on? She asked, setting down her purse. Mrs. Patel smiled knowingly. Your son has something to tell you. Miguel stood up, nervous but determined. Mom, I did something yesterday. I wrote to Mayor Chen about what's been happening at our building, about how the police never come when you call. Maria's eyes widened. You what? I wrote her an email explaining everything. And she called me today. She wants to meet with us tomorrow evening. She's bringing the police captain. Maria sat down hard, looking stunned. The mayor called you directly? Miguel nodded. She said what's happening isn't acceptable, and she's sending someone to make the landlord fix our door today. As if on cue, Maria's phone rang. It was the landlord, suddenly extremely apologetic, explaining that a city housing inspector had contacted him about emergency repairs needed at the Oakwood apartments. After the call, Maria looked at her son with new eyes. This boy, who still needed reminding about brushing his teeth, had somehow accomplished what all her calls and complaints could not. Miguel, she said softly, I don't know whether to be proud or worried that you contacted the mayor without telling me. Are you mad? He asked uncertainly. Maria pulled him into a hug. No, hijo. I'm amazed. You saw a problem and you found a way to fix it when adults couldn't. But next time, please tell me before you email important government officials. That night, Back in their apartment with a brand new door and lock installed by a city-approved contractor, Miguel lay awake thinking about tomorrow's meeting. He'd never imagined the mayor would actually listen to someone like him. It made him wonder what else might be possible when people in power actually paid attention to regular families like his. Mayor Gloria Chen sat at her desk long after most of her staff had gone home, the glow of her computer screen illuminating the framed family photos and civic awards that lined her office walls. Her back ached from hours of budget meetings, but she couldn't stop thinking about the email she'd read earlier that afternoon. It wasn't the most eloquent message in her inbox. It certainly wasn't from an influential donor or powerful community leader. But something about the straightforward words from 12-year-old Miguel Rodriguez had cut through the political noise that usually filled her days. "Diane," she called to her chief of staff who was gathering papers in the outer office. "Did you reach that boy who emailed about the police response issues?" Diane appeared in the doorway. "Yes, I spoke with him. Bright kid. He seemed shocked that you wanted to talk to him. And we're set for tomorrow's meeting?" "All arranged. I've informed Captain Reyes that you expect him to attend personally, not send a representative. Housing Services has already contacted the landlord about immediate repairs." Gloria nodded, leaning back in her chair. "Good. Pull the response time data for the Pine Hills precinct for the last 6 months. I want to see if this family's experience is part of a pattern." After Diane left, Gloria reread Miguel's email. 20 years ago, she'd been a social worker in neighborhoods like his before entering politics. She'd seen firsthand how some communities received prompt attention from city services, while others were consistently overlooked. When she ran for mayor 3 years ago, Gloria had promised to change that. But bureaucracies moved slowly, and as she rose higher in government, it became easier to focus on big-picture metrics rather than individual stories. Miguel's email was a stark reminder of the real people behind those statistics. The next evening, Gloria's city car pulled up outside the Oakwood apartments. The 7-story building had seen better days: peeling paint, cracked concrete steps, security doors that looked relatively new but already showed signs of tampering. "Not exactly how I planned to spend my Thursday evening," muttered Captain Reyes from the back seat, adjusting his uniform tie. Gloria turned to face him. "Tom, I've known you for 15 years. You're a good cop. But something's broken in your precinct's response system, and we need to fix it." The captain frowned. "With all due respect, Mayor, we're understaffed and overwhelmed with calls. We prioritize based on what? Because from what I can see, some neighborhoods get immediate response while others wait hours if they get help at all." Gloria gathered her briefcase. "Let's go meet this family that's called your department 15 times without results." The Rodriguez apartment was on the 4th floor. Gloria noticed the brand new door immediately. It stood out among the older ones lining the hallway. A small woman answered her knock, eyes widening at the sight of the mayor and police captain standing there. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm Gloria Chen. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Maria Rodriguez seemed momentarily speechless before gathering herself. "Please come in, and it's just Ms. Rodriguez. I'm not married." She stepped aside, revealing a modest but immaculately kept apartment. 3 children stood in a line behind her. The oldest boy, clearly Miguel, watching the visitors with a mixture of awe and determination. "This is my son Miguel, who I understand has already introduced himself via email," Maria said with a hint of maternal pride mixed with embarrassment. "And my daughters Elena and Luisa." "It's wonderful to meet all of you," Gloria said, shaking each child's hand formally, which made the youngest giggle. "This is Captain Reyes from the Pine Hills Police Precinct." The captain nodded stiffly. "Ms. Rodriguez." Maria offered them seats at a small dining table that had clearly been prepared for important visitors. A fresh tablecloth, a plate of cookies, cups for coffee or tea. Gloria noticed a folder of papers neatly stacked at one end. "Have to admit," Maria began hesitantly, "I was shocked when Miguel told me he'd written to you, and even more shocked that you responded." "Your son wrote a very compelling email," Gloria replied. "He included specific details that concerned me greatly." "I've kept records," Maria said, sliding the folder forward. Every call I've made, every incident I've reported, dates, times, names of officers when they did come, which wasn't often. Captain Reyes reached for the folder, flipping through it with increasing discomfort. Ms. Rodriguez, I want to assure you that the Pine Hills Precinct takes all reports seriously. With all due respect, Captain, Maria interrupted, a tremor in her voice. That hasn't been my experience. When someone broke into my neighbor's apartment in January, an officer came the next day. When my door was broken and our things stolen 2 days ago, we waited 3 hours. The officer took notes and left. No follow-up, no investigation. The captain shifted uncomfortably. We have protocols for prioritizing calls. Based on what? Gloria interjected. Because I looked at the data this afternoon. Response times in this neighborhood average 48 minutes for non-violent calls. In Riverdale, it's 12 minutes. Both neighborhoods fall under your precinct, Captain. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Miguel, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. We see the same people hanging around our building every week. Mom calls, but nothing happens. It's like we don't matter as much as other people. Out of the mouths of babes, Gloria thought. The boy had articulated precisely what the data suggested. Before I was mayor, Gloria said, looking directly at Maria, I was a social worker. I saw how systems that are supposed to protect everyone often leave some people behind. Not because the individuals working in those systems are bad people, but because patterns develop. Blind spots form. She turned to Captain Reyes. Tom, this isn't about blaming you or your officers. It's about fixing a problem. The captain looked from the mayor to Maria's folder of documented calls. Something in his expression shifted. Ms. Rodriguez, may I ask, did you ever speak to a shift supervisor when officers were delayed? Maria nodded. Twice. Both times I was told my calls were in the queue and would be addressed when possible. The captain made a note. And the suspicious individuals you've reported, are they the same people consistently? Yes, mostly. I've written descriptions in my notes. As the conversation continued, Gloria watched Miguel watching the adults. The boy had single-handedly set this meeting in motion, cutting through layers of bureaucracy with one heartfelt email. It reminded her of why she'd entered politics in the first place, to make systems work for people who needed them most. After an hour of detailed discussion with Maria sharing specific incidents and Captain Reyes taking extensive notes, Gloria felt it was time to move from problem to solution. Here's what's going to happen, she announced. Captain Reyes will personally review patrol patterns in this neighborhood and adjust them to ensure regular police presence. We'll also assign a community liaison officer specifically to this building and the surrounding blocks. The captain nodded, his initial defensiveness replaced by professional focus. I'll also review all open reports from this area to identify patterns we might have missed. Ms. Rodriguez, your documentation will be extremely helpful. Additionally, Gloria continued, I'm going to have our housing department conduct a full inspection of this building. From what I've seen, there are multiple code violations that need addressing. Maria's eyes filled with tears. I've been calling about these things for so long, I started to think nobody would ever listen. Your son made sure we listened, Gloria said gently. Sometimes it takes a fresh perspective to cut through the noise. As the meeting wound down, Gloria noticed Miguel fidgeting slightly. Miguel, you look like you have something to say. The boy straightened. It's not just our building. My friend Tony lives 2 blocks over, and they have the same problems. And the park near our school has people doing drugs there in the daytime, so we can't use it anymore. Gloria exchanged glances with Captain Reyes. This sounds like a neighborhood-wide issue that needs addressing. After promises of immediate action and exchanging contact information, Gloria gave Maria her direct office number, not just the public line. The mayor and police captain prepared to leave. At the door, Maria hesitated before speaking. Mayor, Chen, thank you. Not just for coming, but for actually listening. It means more than you know. Gloria smiled. Thank your son. He reminded me of something important about my job. She turned to Miguel. Never stop speaking up when something isn't right. That's how things change. In the car heading back to city, Hall Captain Reyes was uncharacteristically quiet. "Thoughts, Tom?" Gloria prompted. He sighed heavily. "I knew response times varied across neighborhoods, but seeing those numbers, and meeting that family," he shook his head. "We can do better. We should be doing better." "Yes, we should," Gloria agreed. "And not just in policing, that building has multiple safety issues that should have been addressed months ago." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking we need a systemic review. All city, services, all neighborhoods. Response times, resource allocation, everything." Gloria looked out at the streets passing by. "And I'm thinking about a 12-year-old boy who shouldn't have had to email the mayor to get basic services for his family." Back at City Hall, despite the late hour, Gloria called an emergency meeting with her key staff. As they assembled in the conference room, she outlined what she'd learned at the Rodriguez apartment. "This isn't just about one family or one building," she explained. "What we're seeing is likely the tip of the iceberg. I want a full audit of service response times across all neighborhoods, all departments. Police, fire, housing inspections, trash collection, everything." Diane, her chief of staff, looked concerned. "That's going to ruffle some feathers, especially with department heads." "Good," Gloria replied firmly. "Feathers need ruffling. We've gotten comfortable with looking at overall city metrics without drilling down to see who's being left behind." As the meeting concluded, Gloria returned to her office, mind racing with next steps. On her desk sat a framed photo from her inauguration day, her hand on a Bible, promising to serve all citizens equally. Miguel's email had been a stark reminder of how easy it was to lose sight of that promise amid budgets, politics, and bureaucracy. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. "Captain Reyes, it's Gloria. I need you to do something first thing tomorrow. Send your best community liaison officer to Oakwood Apartments. I want daily patrols and check-ins with residents starting immediately, and I want weekly reports on what they find." After hanging up, she made one more call to the city housing commissioner, authorizing emergency inspections and enforcement actions at Oakwood and surrounding properties. It was nearly midnight when Gloria finally headed home. As her car drove through the quiet streets, she thought about Maria Rodriguez checking her door locks 3 times, and Miguel staying up late to craft an email to a government official he never expected would respond. Sometimes the most important mayoral work happened not in budget meetings or press conferences, but in ordinary living rooms where citizens shared their truth. And sometimes the most important civic lessons came not from experienced advisors, but from 12-year-old boys who still believed the system could work if the right person was listening. The morning after Mayor Chen's visit, Maria woke to an unfamiliar sound, someone knocking on her apartment door. Not the aggressive pounding she'd grown used to ignoring, but a professional, measured knock. Wrapping her robe tightly around herself, she peered through the new peephole to see a uniformed police officer waiting patiently in the hallway. Her first instinct was worry. Had something else happened in the building? She opened the door cautiously. "Ms. Rodriguez? I'm Officer Lisa Pham, Community Liaison for Pine Hills Precinct." The woman was in her 30s with a calm, attentive expression. "Captain Reyes assigned me specifically to your building and the surrounding area. I wanted to introduce myself and give you my direct contact information." Maria blinked in surprise. "That was fast." Officer Pham smiled. "Mayor's orders. May I come in for a moment? I'd like to review the security concerns you've reported." Inside, while Maria made coffee, Officer Pham explained her role. "I'll be patrolling this area daily, getting to know residents, addressing ongoing issues." "Captain Reyes has flagged all previous reports from this building for review." She handed Maria a business card. "This has my direct line, not dispatch, my personal work phone. If you see anything concerning, call me directly." As the officer left, promising to check the building's entry points and speak with other residents, Maria sat at her kitchen table in a state of stunned disbelief. After months of feeling invisible to authorities, things were suddenly happening at dizzying speed. Her phone buzzed with a text from her boss at the hospital cafeteria. "Need to leave early today? Heard the mayor visited your place." Maria stared at the message. How did her supervisor already know? By the time she got her children ready for school, news of the mayor's visit seemed to have spread throughout the neighborhood. Mrs. Patel stopped her in the hallway, eyes wide with curiosity. "Is it true? The mayor came to your apartment last night?" "Yes," Maria admitted. "Miguel emailed her about our problems with police response times." Mrs. Patel clasped her hands together. "That boy of yours, so brave. Will things change now?" "I hope so," Maria said, though part of her remained skeptical. She'd seen promises of change before, only to watch them fade as officials moved on to more pressing matters. At school, Miguel found himself the center of unexpected attention. His homeroom teacher pulled him aside before class. "Miguel, I heard about what you did," Ms. Wilson said quietly. Contacting the mayor took real courage and initiative. He shuffled his feet, uncomfortable with the praise. "I just wanted someone to help my mom." "Well, you've done more than that. You've potentially helped your whole neighborhood." In the hallways between classes, other students looked at him differently. Tony Martinez, who lived 2 blocks over, cornered him at lunch. "Dude, is it true the mayor came to your house? My dad says there were police cars outside your building this morning." "Not police cars, just one officer," Miguel explained. "She's supposed to help with the security problems." "My building has the same issues," Tony said. "Think they'll help us too?" Miguel thought about what Mayor Chen had said about systemic problems. Maybe. The mayor seemed to care about fixing things for everyone, not just us. Across town at the Pine Hills Police Precinct, Captain Tom Reyes was holding an emergency meeting with his shift supervisors. Spread across the conference table were printouts of response time data, color-coded by neighborhood. "I don't want excuses," he said firmly. "I want explanations for these discrepancies." He pointed to a chart showing dramatically different response times between the east and west sides of their precinct. Lieutenant Reynolds, a 20-year veteran, frowned. "We prioritize based on the nature of the call, Tom. You know that." "Do we?" Reyes challenged. "Or do we unconsciously prioritize certain neighborhoods because these numbers tell a different story?" He tapped the report. Similar call types, vastly different response times depending on the address. "We're stretched thin," another supervisor argued. "When multiple calls come in, someone has to wait. And it's always the same someone's waiting," Reyes replied. "That stops today. We're implementing new dispatch protocols effective immediately. Officer Pham has been assigned as community liaison to the Oakwood Apartments area. I want similar assignments for other underserved sectors." After the meeting, Reyes sat alone in his office, reviewing Maria Rodriguez's meticulous documentation of unanswered calls. How many other residents had given up after being ignored repeatedly? How many had stopped reporting problems altogether, assuming no one would come? His desk phone rang. The mayor's office. "Captain Reyes? Mayor Chen is requesting your presence at a press conference tomorrow morning. She's announcing a new community safety initiative and wants you there." At City Hall, Gloria Chen was in back-to-back meetings with department heads. The housing commissioner sat uncomfortably across from her desk. "You're telling me Oakwood Apartments has had 7 code violation complaints in the past year, and not one inspection?" she asked incredulously. "We've been working through a backlog." "That's not good enough," Gloria interrupted. "I was in that building yesterday. Broken security doors, inadequate lighting, malfunctioning fire alarms. Basic safety issues going unaddressed. Mayor Chen, with our current staffing, I'm reallocating emergency funds to hire 3 additional housing inspectors," Gloria announced. "And I want a complete review of how inspection requests are prioritized, because I suspect we'll find the same pattern we saw with police response times." By midday, city workers were at Oakwood Apartments installing new security lighting and fixing the back entrance. The landlord, suddenly extremely attentive, was personally overseeing the repairs. Maria, who had taken a rare day off work to deal with insurance paperwork for their stolen items, watched in amazement as electricians replaced broken hallway fixtures and security technicians installed a proper intercom system. "We've been asking for these repairs for years," she commented to Mr. Lee, her elderly neighbor, who had come out to observe the activity. "Amazing what happens when the mayor gets involved," he replied with a knowing smile. "Your boy did good, Maria." That afternoon, Officer Pham returned with surprising news. Ms. Rodriguez, we've had a development regarding your break-in. One of the men you've previously reported as loitering in the building was picked up for a separate incident. He had your laptop in his possession. Maria's hand flew to her mouth. Really? You found it? It's being processed as evidence, but yes. And he's given us information about others involved in local burglaries. We're actually making arrests based on the descriptions you provided in your reports. For the first time in months, Maria felt something unfamiliar. Hope mixed with validation. Her concerns hadn't been imaginary or unimportant. The problems had been real, and now, finally, someone was addressing them. That evening, as Maria helped her children with homework, her phone rang with an unknown number. Ms. Rodriguez, this is Diane Park from Mayor Chen's office. The mayor is holding a press conference tomorrow morning announcing a new community safety initiative. She'd like you and your family to attend as her guests. Maria hesitated. I appreciate the invitation, but I have work, and the children have school. The mayor specifically requested your presence. She feels your family's experience highlights exactly why this initiative is necessary. Of course, we understand if you can't attend, but transportation would be provided. After hanging up, Maria explained the invitation to her children. Miguel's eyes lit up. We should go, Mom. This could help a lot of people. I'd have to miss work. Again. Maria bit her lip, thinking of her supervisor's growing impatience with her absences. Just this once, Miguel pleaded. It's important. The next morning found the Rodriguez family dressed in their Sunday best, riding in a city car to City Hall. The children stared wide-eyed at the imposing building as they were escorted through security and led to a conference room where Mayor Chen was reviewing notes for her press conference. Ms. Rodriguez, thank you for coming. Gloria greeted them warmly. And Miguel, Elena, Luisa, it's wonderful to see you again. We're honored to be invited, Maria replied, still somewhat overwhelmed by the attention. Though I'm not sure why. You wanted us here. Because this initiative began with your family's experience, Gloria explained. Sometimes big policy changes start with one voice speaking truth to power. She smiled at Miguel. Or in this case, one very articulate email. The press conference was held in the City Hall rotunda. News cameras and reporters filled the space. As Gloria Chen stepped to the podium, flanked by Captain Reyes, the housing commissioner, and other department heads. Today, I'm announcing the Equal Response Initiative, the mayor began. A comprehensive review and reform of how city services are delivered across all neighborhoods. She outlined the program, new dispatch protocols for emergency services, increased accountability for response times, additional housing inspectors, and community liaison officers assigned to underserved areas. This initiative was sparked by one family's experience, Gloria continued. A single mother who made 15 calls to police over 6 months, documenting each one meticulously, only to be repeatedly overlooked, until her 12-year-old son decided to email the mayor directly. Maria felt her cheeks warm as several reporters turned to look at them. What we found when we looked into their situation was not an isolated incident, but evidence of a systemic problem, Gloria continued. Data shows clear disparities in how quickly and effectively city services respond based on neighborhood. That ends today. After the formal announcement, reporters approached the Rodriguez family for comments. Maria, initially hesitant, found her voice when asked about her experience. For months, I felt like no one was listening, she said. Like my family's safety didn't matter as much as others. No one should feel that way in their own home. Miguel, standing tall beside his mother, added, We just wanted the same help that other neighborhoods get. It shouldn't take emailing the mayor to make that happen. His simple statement made headlines across local news that evening. Back at Oakwood Apartments, the transformation continued. In addition to the security upgrades, housing inspectors were checking every unit for code violations. The landlord, faced with potential fines, had suddenly found the budget for long-deferred maintenance. Officer Pham had established a regular presence, getting to know residents and addressing their concerns. Most importantly, when suspicious activity was reported, patrol cars now responded promptly. A week after the press conference, Maria received another call from the mayor's office. Ms. Rodriguez, Mayor Chen is forming a citizen advisory committee on community safety. She'd like to invite you to serve as a representative for your neighborhood. Maria was stunned. Me? But I don't have any background in public policy or... The mayor believes lived experience is valuable expertise. Your documentation of police response issues helped reveal a problem affecting thousands of residents. That perspective is exactly what this committee needs. That evening, Maria discussed the invitation with her children over dinner. You should do it, Mom, Miguel said enthusiastically. You always tell us to speak up when things aren't right. But I'm not a politician or an expert, Maria protested. Maybe that's exactly why you should do it, Miguel replied with the simple wisdom of youth. You know what it's actually like to live here. 2 days later, Maria sat in a city hall conference room with 11 other citizens from various neighborhoods, alongside police representatives, housing officials, and the mayor herself. Each of you brings a unique perspective to this table, Gloria explained to the committee. Your experiences and insights will help shape how we deliver city services more equitably. As the meeting progressed, Maria initially remained quiet, intimidated by the setting and the professionals around the table. But when discussion turned to police response protocols, she found herself speaking up. The issue isn't just how long it takes for officers to arrive, she pointed out. It's also how seriously they take your concerns when they get there. If an officer treats your report as a nuisance, you stop calling, even when you should. Heads nodded around the table. Captain Reyes, who was present, made notes. That's an excellent point, the mayor acknowledged. We need to address both response times and quality of response. By the meeting's end, Maria had contributed several insights, drawn directly from her experiences. As committee members gathered their belongings, a well-dressed woman from an affluent neighborhood approached her. I've never had to wait more than 10 minutes for police to respond to a call, she admitted. Until today, I had no idea how different things were in other parts of the city. Thank you for speaking up. Walking home from the bus stop, Maria reflected on the whirlwind of the past 2 weeks. From feeling powerless and ignored to sitting on a mayoral committee, all because her son had refused to accept that some voices mattered less than others. Outside their building, the newly repaired security door required a key card for entry. The hallways were brightly lit. A police car drove slowly past, the officer inside waving in recognition. As they entered their apartment, Miguel turned to his mother. Do you think things will stay fixed, or will they go back to how they were before? It was the question Maria had been asking herself. Would this attention last or fade once the press coverage died down? I don't know, she answered honestly. But now we know that speaking up can make a difference, and if things start to slip, we'll speak up again. What neither of them could have predicted was how their story would resonate beyond their neighborhood, becoming a catalyst for change that would transform not just their community, but the entire city's approach to public service. 3 months passed like a whirlwind for the Rodriguez family. The seasons had changed from winter to spring, and much more than just the weather had transformed in their neighborhood. Maria hurried through her morning routine, checking her appearance in the bathroom mirror one last time. The dark circles that had once been a permanent fixture under her eyes had faded. She still worked hard. Double shifts were a fact of life for a single mother. But she no longer carried the constant weight of worry that had aged her beyond her 34 years. Miguel, Elena, Luisa, breakfast is ready, she called, laying out cereal bowls and fruit. We can't be late today. The children emerged from their rooms, unusually cooperative for a Monday morning. Today wasn't just any day. It was the official launch of the city's Equal Response Initiative, and Maria was scheduled to speak at the ceremony. Mom, are you nervous about your speech? Elena asked, pouring milk over her cereal. Maria smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. A little. I've never spoken in front of so many people before. You'll do great, Miguel assured her, his voice deeper than it had been just months ago. At nearly 13, he seemed to be growing an inch every week. Just tell them what it was like before and how it's different now. That's exactly what I plan to do, Maria replied, touched by her son's confidence in her. The transformation had started small. Officer Pham's daily presence in their building, the repaired security, doors, the prompt response when residents called about suspicious activity. But like ripples in a pond, the effects had spread outward. When Maria arrived for her second Citizen Advisory Committee meeting, she'd been surprised to find a reporter waiting to interview her. The story of a single mother's detailed documentation and her son's email to the mayor had captured public attention. "How does it feel to be the catalyst for citywide policy change?" the reporter had asked. Maria had blinked in surprise. "I'm not a catalyst. I'm just a mom who wanted her kids to be safe." That quote had appeared in the headline of a feature article about disparities in city services. Other residents from neglected neighborhoods began coming forward with similar stories, each one adding momentum to the mayor's initiative. By the third committee meeting, data analysts had presented stark evidence of the inequality. Emergency response times averaging 6 to 8 minutes in affluent neighborhoods versus 25 to 30 minutes in lower-income areas. Housing code violations addressed within days in some districts while languishing for months in others. Even trash collection and street repairs showing similar patterns. Now, 3 months later, the City Council had unanimously approved the initiative, allocating funds for additional personnel, better training, and new accountability measures across all departments. As the Rodriguez family walked to the bus stop, Miguel pointed out changes in their neighborhood: the freshly painted crosswalks near the school, the repaired playground equipment, the absence of the suspicious characters who had once loitered on certain corners. "Mr. Diaz is opening his bodega again," he noted, nodding toward a storefront that had been shuttered for months. A cheerful grand reopening sign hung in the window. "He told me he feels safe having evening hours now," Maria explained. "With regular police patrols and the new streetlights, more businesses are staying open later." The ceremony was being held at City Hall Plaza, a wide open space already filling with people when they arrived. A stage had been set up with rows of chairs for officials and invited speakers, including Maria. A special section in the front was reserved for community, members who had contributed to the initiative. Mayor Chen spotted them immediately, waving them over. "Maria, you're just in time. We're about to begin the media briefing." Maria smoothed her skirt nervously. "I've never done a press conference before." "Just be yourself," Gloria advised. "Your authenticity is what made people listen in the first place." The briefing was held in a small room adjacent to the plaza. Reporters from local newspapers and TV stations crowded in, cameras and microphones at the ready. Maria sat between Mayor Chen and Captain Reyes, hands folded tightly in her lap to hide their trembling. "Today marks the official implementation of the Equal Response Initiative," Gloria began, addressing the gathered press. "This comprehensive program will ensure that all city services, from emergency response to housing inspections to basic maintenance, are delivered equitably across every neighborhood." She outlined the key components: new dispatch protocols, with strict response time standards, community liaison officers assigned to each neighborhood, regular audits of service delivery metrics with results made public, a citizen oversight committee with real authority to address issues. But perhaps the most important element, Gloria continued, is the commitment to listen to residents, all residents, with equal attention and respect. That's a lesson we learned from Ms. Rodriguez and her family. When it was Maria's turn to speak, she took a deep breath and unfolded the notes she'd prepared. 3 months ago, I had called the police 15 times about security issues in our building. Most of those calls went unanswered. When our apartment was broken into, we waited 3 hours for an officer who seemed annoyed to be there. I felt invisible, like my family's safety didn't matter to the people whose job it was to protect us. She paused, looking up from her notes. My son Miguel decided that if the usual channels weren't working, he would try something different. He emailed Mayor Chen, not really expecting a response. But she did respond, and more importantly, she listened. Maria described the changes in her building, her neighborhood, and in her own sense of belonging in the city. What's happened goes beyond fixing broken locks or faster police response times. It's about dignity, It's about knowing that your voice matters just as much as anyone else's, regardless of your zip code or income level. A reporter raised her hand. Ms. Rodriguez, you've become something of a symbol for this initiative. How do you feel about that role? Maria considered the question carefully. I never wanted to be a symbol. I just wanted what every parent wants, to keep my children safe. But if our story helps other families get the services they deserve, then I'm proud to be part of that change. After the briefing, they moved to the plaza for the public ceremony. The crowd had grown to several hundred people, residents from across the city, community organizers, city employees, and curious onlookers. As Mayor Chen delivered her formal address from the podium, Maria scanned the audience. In the front row, she spotted Mrs. Patel and Mr. Lee from her building, alongside dozens of other Oakwood Apartments residents who had come to support her. Behind them stood Officer Pham, out of uniform on her day off but present nonetheless. This initiative began with one family's experience, the mayor was saying, but it revealed systemic issues affecting thousands of our citizens. Today we're not just launching new policies and procedures, we're recommitting to the fundamental principle that every resident deserves equal service, equal response, and equal respect from their city government. When Maria rose to speak, she set aside her prepared remarks. Looking out at the familiar faces of her neighbors, people who had lived alongside her through years of feeling forgotten, she spoke from the heart. 6 months ago, I had stopped believing that things could change. I still made those calls to police, still reported broken security doors, still documented everything, but I'd lost hope that anyone was listening. She glanced at Miguel, sitting tall in the front row. My son taught me an important lesson. He reminded me that sometimes you have to find a new way to be heard. That persistence matters. That one voice can make a difference. In the crowd, she saw nodding heads, a few wiping away tears. What's happened in our neighborhood isn't just about better police response or fixed doors. It's about restoration of trust. When city services respond equally to all neighborhoods, it tells every resident, you matter. Your safety matters. Your quality of life matters. After the ceremony, as people mingled in the plaza, Maria found herself surrounded by well-wishers, some from her neighborhood, others from across the city. A middle-aged man in a business suit approached with his hand extended. Ms. Rodriguez? I'm David Wilson, president of the Chamber of Commerce. Your story made me realize how my own business practices might be contributing to inequity in our city. I'd like to talk with you about ways our business community can support the neighborhoods that have been overlooked. Before she could respond, an elderly woman touched her arm. I live across town, dear, in Riverside Heights. I've never had to wait more than 5 minutes for police to arrive. I had no idea others waited hours if they came at all. Thank you for opening my eyes. These conversations continued as Maria and her children made their way through the crowd. Each interaction reinforced what Mayor Chen had told her weeks earlier. Their experience had touched something fundamental about fairness and belonging that resonated with people across different backgrounds. As the plaza began to clear, Maria spotted Miguel deep in conversation with a group of kids his age. Drawing closer, she realized they were from his school's student council. We could start a youth advisory board, one girl was saying enthusiastically. Like, to give feedback about what kids in different neighborhoods need. Yeah, Miguel agreed. Mayor Chen said young people see problems differently than adults do. We notice things they might miss. Maria smiled, watching her once quiet son gesturing animatedly as he shared ideas. The boy who had written that email 3 months ago was finding his voice in ways she never could have predicted. Later that evening, after the younger children had gone to bed, Maria found Miguel at the kitchen table with his laptop open. Homework? She asked, setting a mug of hot chocolate beside him. Actually, I'm writing about today for the school newspaper, he replied. Ms. Wilson asked me to cover the ceremony since I was, involved. Maria sat beside him. I'm proud of you, not just for writing that email, but for believing things could change when even I had stopped believing. Miguel looked up from his laptop. I remembered what you always told us, that if something's wrong, we should speak up. I just found a different person to speak to. She reached over to smooth his hair, a gesture he'd recently begun to protest, as too babyish. But tonight he allowed it. The mayor offered me a part-time position, Maria said quietly, working with the community outreach team for the initiative. It would mean cutting back hours at the hospital, but the pay is better, and the schedule would let me be home more in the evenings. Miguel's eyes widened. Are you going to take it? I think so. It feels right, using what we've been through to help other families. The next morning, Maria woke to the sound of her alarm, not to worries jolting her awake before dawn. As she moved through her morning routine, she paused at the refrigerator where Mayor Chen's business card was still magnetized to the door. A reminder of the day everything began to change. Beside it now hung an official city ID badge with her photo and the title Community Liaison, Equal Response Initiative. She would start next week working directly with residents in neighborhoods like hers to rebuild trust between communities and city services. On her way out, Maria passed the small table near their front door where she'd once kept her notebook of unanswered calls and unaddressed complaints. The notebook was gone now, replaced by a framed certificate of appreciation from the city council and a newspaper clipping with the headline, Mother's Persistence, Son's Email, Spark Citywide Reform. Outside, the spring morning was bright with promise. Mr. Lee was watering the new flowers residents had planted around the building entrance. He waved cheerfully. Morning, Maria. Big day yesterday. You made us all proud. It wasn't just me, she replied, smiling. It took all of us speaking up together. But it started with you and that boy of yours, he insisted. Sometimes all it takes is one pebble to start an avalanche. As Maria waited at the bus stop, she noticed a new poster on the shelter wall. It showed a city map with the words, Equal Response Initiative across the top, and every neighborhood, every resident, every time, below. In smaller print at the E. Bottom was a QR code and text that read, Response time concerns. Scan here to report or call the citizen hotline. A young mother with a toddler noticed her looking at the poster. Have you seen these all over now? The woman asked. My husband called that number last week when there was a water main break on our street. They had a crew out within an hour. Never happened that fast before. Maria nodded. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. You're that lady from the news, aren't you? The woman asked suddenly. The one whose son emailed the mayor? Yes, that's me, Maria admitted. The woman shifted her toddler to her other hip. My brother lives in Oakwood. Apartments, he said things are really different there now. Better. They are, Maria confirmed. It's not perfect, but it's better. As her bus approached, Maria took one last look at the poster. The map showed the city as a whole, with no neighborhoods highlighted or differentiated. Just one unified city where a call for help from any street deserved the same response as a call from any other. That evening, Maria attended her first meeting as an official community liaison. The community center was packed with residents eager to share their experiences and concerns. Some faces she recognized from her building. Others were from neighborhoods across the city. As she stood to introduce herself, Maria caught sight of Miguel slipping into the back of the room. He hadn't mentioned coming, but there he was, notebook in hand, eyes bright with interest. My name is Maria Rodriguez, she began. 3 months ago, I was sitting where you are now, wondering if anyone would ever listen to my concerns about my neighborhood. Today, I'm here to tell you that your voices matter. Your experiences matter. And together, we can build a city that truly serves everyone equally. As the meeting progressed, Maria noticed Miguel taking notes, occasionally raising his hand to offer a young person's perspective on the issues being discussed. The boy who had once been too shy to speak up in class was now confidently addressing a room full of adults. When the meeting ended, Miguel approached the front where Maria was gathering her materials. You did great, Mom, he said, showing her his notebook filled with ideas and observations. So did you, she replied, thinking of becoming a community organizer. He shrugged, but his eyes were thoughtful. Maybe, or maybe a mayor someday. Maria laughed, but not dismissively. After the past 3 months, she had learned not to underestimate her son or the power of one determined voice to change an entire system. As they walked home together under the newly repaired streetlights, Maria realized that the transformation wasn't just in their neighborhood or in city policies. It was in themselves, in her renewed belief that speaking up mattered, in Miguel's growing confidence, in their shared conviction that ordinary people could make extraordinary differences. On their refrigerator at home, right next to the mayor's business card, was a simple handwritten note that Miguel had taped there the day after their apartment was broken into. It had stayed through all the changes of the past months, a reminder of where their journey had begun. If no one listens, find someone who will.